GST, and we've done an interesting GST survey, our flagship survey, third one in the row. I have with me Pramod Jain today, the head of tax of Flipkart, and Mr. Nagendra Kumar, a former member CBIC and senior advisor at Deloitte. Thank you, Pramod. Thank you, DPN sir, as we fondly call you, for the engagement today. So GST at 7, our survey talks, Pramod, about an 84% positive sentiment. This is up from 72% last year. A few of the areas that have been called out is optimal supply chain, reduced cascading effect of taxes. Few other areas that have been given a thumbs up this time as against last year is a heightened number of participants talking about automation and e-invoicing, as well as the openness of the government to engage with stakeholders and issuing circulars. How do you experience this from a very large industry perspective? Keen to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Mahesh. So the best part of GST implementation over the last 7 years, if you have to look at, is that we have a very listening government and a very action-oriented government. They keep on engaging with the government with the industry from time to time, taking their feedback and acting very fast on that. Now, if we look at the most recent GST Council which has happened, the number of clarifications, pro-industry clarifications that have been given are amazing. And if we look at the other part, how the clarifications have been issued on ESOPs, corporate guarantees, on import of services, there could have been a potential tax demand of more than 50,000 crore on those disputes, but maybe the government has taken a more pragmatic call whether those tax demands are sustainable or not. Now, this is the best part of GST implementation over the last 7 years when you are dealing with a very listening and action-oriented government. And the second part, which probably has come out in your survey, is the automation. That how GSTN has been the backbone of entire GST implementation. So this whole automation, how the e-invoicing has been rolled out, how we have 100% paperless online compliances, and then which facilitates online tracking of taxes. So this has been the big game changer for the industry.
Thank you, Pramod. I think you're effectively saying what our survey said about a week ago is validated in the last council meeting. It's a good segue to ask this question, DPN sir, that how was your take on the council meeting? It's a first council meeting after 8.5 months. Can you give us some insights vis-a-vis what the survey wanted and what the council has delivered? And in any case, your overarching comments about the council meeting.
Thanks, Mahesh. This GST Deloitte survey has not only been evaluating the feedback from the taxpayers, but also brought up some of the key focus areas in which the taxpayers wanted the government to engage with. And that's where I think when we look at the GST Council meeting decisions, I think some of the important issues with regard to rate rationalization and also with regard to some of the legal ambiguities which was bothering the industry in terms of the procedural or for that matter irritants has been largely addressed in this council meeting. In a way, I think our survey has been a precursor for many of those asks which the industry has expressed in the survey has been finding a rhythm in terms of the resolution in the GST Council meetings is a welcome point to be noted. Coming to very specific issues, Mahesh, and so far as the legal ambiguities are concerned, the government has proposed an introduction by virtue of section 11A by which by a general trade practice if somebody has not paid the tax or paid a lower rate of tax, and if there is a prospective clarity which brings in a certain amount of certainty, I think insofar as the past period is concerned, I think there could be some sort of a mitigating in terms of not demanding the taxes and also providing relief to the industry. This enablement will go a long way considering the fact that the GST has thrown up a number of issues, particularly relating to deemed supplies, cross-border transactions, etc. I am hopeful this enabling provision will give the GST Council the legal wherewithal to provide clarification for settling the past disputes.
Thank you. So more than 30 circulars, and the one that you called out the most relevant is an enabling provision for even more to embrace any past sort of tax positions and be dispensing liability. Pramod, coming back to you, how do you read our survey vis-a-vis what the MSMEs had to say? And more importantly, do you think the council, what's your take on the council's decisions vis-a-vis the MSME sector?
So I think in your survey, the MSME sector has given a big thumbs up to the whole GST implementation in the country. And if you look at the recommendations of the recent GST Council also, there is a big relief for the sellers who sell on e-commerce platform, especially the MSME sector, the artisans, weavers who come onto the e-commerce platforms and want to sell through us, for them the TCS rate itself has been reduced from 1% to 0.5%. In our view, this should unlock a huge amount of working capital for them. The second aspect, if we look at what has been done for the MSME sector, the government has announced an amnesty scheme for these small non-compliances or minor offences, which may have crippled in during the first 3 years of GST implementation, and the companies can choose to just settle those disputes without paying any interest and penalty. That itself is a big positive for the MSME sector. And now we can just go on how the pre-deposit limits have been reduced, and also the government making it intent very clear that they are not going to fight as much with the industry by increasing the threshold limits for filing appeals to the tribunal or to the High Court or Supreme Court. That itself is a big positive for the MSME sector, that while large companies would have the big budgets and big lawyers to fight, but MSME sector may not, but the government is not going to fight with them as much.
Interesting. I think clearly different aspects that have come out which will apply to industry at large, but MSMEs did give 78% of them give a thumbs up, much higher than last year. DPN sir, in this in our survey, one of the points that came out was pre-deposits, audits and clarifications. Now in this council meeting, vis-a-vis the audits part as well, I think there's been some run up to the council and clarifications. What's your take? The Honorable FM even mentioned that the audits from the central is less than 2%, but how do you think this journey is going to evolve is the question I have for you.
In fact, Mahesh, if you look at the engagement of the government with the trade and industry, a lot of pain points pointed out in the last year's survey with regard to the multiplicity of proceedings, particularly in the context of the investigations. The government has come up with a standard operating procedure clarifying what are the do's and do nots, and clearly provided certain guardrails against excessive use of power during investigations. The audit and scrutiny is a planned work. I'm sure, I think, given the nature of the subnational level taxation, where a business entity could have more than one state present with different registrations, a coordinated approach in conducting this audit in a standardized manner, where the participating governments, it could be the state and it could be all those states and the center. I think I foresee that the strong felt need for multi-state present entities is to have a coordinated approach for audit. Going by the experience of issual of an SOP for the investigation, I don't foresee much difficulty provided the government is being approached with a proper request. A standard guideline could be issued for the audit front as well, which would make the taxpayer's life much easier and simpler to comply.
Thank you, sir. I think we're all aware that the states as well as the centre are investing a lot on capacity building. With that, my last question, Pramod, what next? What is the GST 2.0 reforms? Our survey has some interesting inputs on areas that you are passionate about, but keen to hear that from you.
We are more hopeful than ever before. So now as the GST 2.0, we are looking forward to measures by the government on how to unblock working capital, which is otherwise stuck in unutilized input tax credits, and also how some of the restrictions around input tax credit, for example, for construction of industrial warehouses, commercial properties, hotels, etc., that can be removed. That should free up at least or reduce the cost of construction by 10%. And also some of the restrictions contained for the benefits to employees, like rent-a-cab, insurance services. So let's make it a complete seamless GST implementation rather than creating artificial barriers that you cannot claim this credit or you can claim this credit.
Got it. I think some of them are medium to long term, though let's hope for it to be sooner. Last words from you, DPN sir. What do you feel from the survey are the next 2.0 reforms that we can expect something, if not in the short term, in the medium to long term?
I think the important task before the government is the rate rationalization. Thankfully, the GOM, which remained in a limbo, has been reconstituted with the Deputy Chief Minister of Bihar heading the registration committee. The committee is expected to address some of those issues relating to inversion and also somewhere, I think, the course correction. More importantly, I think on the procedural issues, the GST Council has been very proactive and addressing the concerns. And going forward, I think still there are pain points which the industry has experienced in terms of export rule restrictions, particularly in the intermediary and claiming the export refunds. Probably on those issues, I think welcome clarifications expected in the soon.
With that, thank you. The next meeting is in August. Let's see what happens then. Never a dull moment, and only looks like it's only going to get more positive in terms of some of the asks from industry. Thank you again, Pramod. Thank you again, sir. Thank you, everyone.